So that is our Whitehall Value Added Product Development Center. Renee, you may be interested in, again, visiting our facility. Berkeley is already in our facility working. So Randy, how are you? And Brandy, thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to go right into tonight's subject. My name is Faustino Dag. Everyone calls me Dag. So I would all like you all to do the same. So tonight we're talking about listening to the voice of the customer to strengthen your business. And so for many people, it's really, well, I don't have to come to a workshop, but one of the things that happens in a startup, and even as you start to scale, something interesting happens. I like to put up a quick quote. Starting a business is easy, keeping it going is hard. For those of you who have already started a business and it's ongoing, you sort of may have the same sentiment. Yeah, starting it was fairly hard, but then when you look at the ongoing issues of getting it to run and be successful, it gets harder and harder. So one of the things I like to look at is this business startup failure rates. And the reason I like to start here is because the subject for tonight, listening to the customer, has a direct impact on the failure rates of startups. So this is the latest I could find. And it might be shocking to some of you, and some of you may be familiar with these statistics, but within the first year, 21.5% of all startups fail. Between the second year, the first to the second year, 30%, almost a third, will fail. And somewhere between the second to the fifth year, 50% will fail, which is half. So, those are startling statistics for a lot of people. And so you might be thinking to yourself, well, what's the real cause of this? What's the cause of these early failures for great startups who had great ideas, great product concepts, and most importantly, was passionate about the product, the business, and everything that has to say what is promising. So let's take a look at a survey that sort of answer what is the top reason why startups fail. And this is the survey, and I looked at 5 surveys, all very similar. I just chose this one because it is the easiest to reproduce, but you're hard to see right now from Forbes. And so the number one reason by far that startups fail is there's no market need. You say, what? And for all of you here who have a business or thinking about starting a business, right? So what do you mean? What does it mean by no market need? I have a great product. I have a great idea. So let's take a kind of a not so deep look, but a kind of penetrating look at this number one reasons by far, 42% of why startups fail within the first 5 years at the highest rate of failure. And the cause is at the very start, there is no or very poor problem solution fit. A business exists to solve a problem, and oftentimes a business starts and the problem that the founder is thinking of solving and the solution does not really match the real marketplace. The second one is no or very poor product market fit. Product market fit is a term saying that my product matches my target market, the people I want to sell to, and this product is actually solving their problem. And so we call that product market fit when your product solution actually solves the problem of your target market. And this is sometimes referred to as the holy grail of entrepreneurship. Without product market fit, success is very difficult. So these are 2 areas. The problem and solution fit at the very start of a startup, and product market fit towards the effort to scale. So again, when you're starting a business, you have to try to make sure that you have the correct problem solution fit. And as you start to scale, that you have the proper product market fit. And we're going to be discussing that this evening and taking some looks at how we can perhaps prevent some of these early failures or from happening. So the only thing that's really interesting is only customers can tell you if you found a problem worth solving. Again, every business exists to solve a problem. And only your target customers can tell you if you found a problem worth solving. That is everything. So when we look at the first stage of failure, which is the no problem solution fit, and this is again happening at the very start of a business. A founder has a great idea for a product, have a great idea for why that product has to enter the marketplace, but then they haven't looked at what problem am I solving? Again, the first stage of a startup is making sure that you fully understand the problem you are solving for your target market. Again, this is really at the very start. Even after you started within the first year, you find sometimes that maybe there's no match. Your product or service solution must match what is wanted and valued by your target segment. And this is one of the areas in which early startup failure takes place, is because you don't have that match. When the problem is not fully understood, a founder may be trying to solve the wrong problem or is trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. And this, I've seen this many, many times, in that there's great products, but that product solves nothing in the marketplace, not because the problem doesn't exist. It's that the solution isn't matching the problem. Again, let's take a look at chocolate chip cookies. A lot of people want to start a chocolate chip cookie business. And so they have a great recipe, whether it's a family heirloom recipe or one that they just start design and develop by themselves. Then they go to market and they have a chocolate chip, and they expect that the chocolate chip will be such a success because all their friends and family say, "You gotta go out and start a business and sell these chocolate chip." The main problem with that is they haven't looked to see if my chocolate chip is solving any problem out there. And one of the things we want to do is we want to make sure that we will develop a chocolate chip that the people in the marketplace really wants, because they may have a problem. For instance, if somebody wants a chocolate chip with big chunks of chocolate, then the problem is that they can't find a chocolate chip cookie with big chunks of chocolate, and now a problem exists. Same thing, I want chocolate chip with pecans, then that problem exists. But if you go out and just create a chocolate chip cookie without looking into the marketplace to see what needs are there, what is missing in the marketplace, then you'll be going into the marketplace with a chocolate chip cookie that really has no problem to solve. And that results in a no market need. Again, no one needs a chocolate chip if I don't have a problem with that particular type of chocolate chip. So any questions about that first area? This is at the very even before a company starts, when they start to conceive of a product, one of the things that needs really to take place is that they start to look at what problem am I trying to solve? So any questions about that area right now? What I like to do is I call this talk story sessions. And so if you have a question or anything, excuse me, just yell it out and I'll stop and I'll talk about it. So this is the first stage. So let's go look a little bit more about the other stages. Let me take a look at that. And the second time it happens is then when you're starting to scale and you have no product market fit. When you're scaling into a larger market, so scale simply, people sometimes think that scaling means I'm just going to make more product and I'm going to sell more product to more people. And scaling is a little bit different. And I'm going to try to explain that a little bit more in a couple of slides. But when you scale, you're actually entering a larger market. And that larger market actually has needs, wants, and values that are slightly different from the market that you're doing business right now. So just by producing more product and to try to sell to more people often doesn't work because the scaling part, the market, the larger market you're trying to enter has different characteristics that you need to account for. Oftentimes we refer to it as crossing the chasm. So when the problem is not fully understood, a founder may be trying to solve the wrong, excuse me. I was in several meetings this afternoon and my voice is getting to be shot. Trying to solve the wrong problem was trying to solve a problem that does exist. And once again, you have a no market need. So one of the things we're going to look at this evening is how do we sort of figure out how this happens. So when scaling into markets, you want to look at this area. Let me pop up the next slide. Last month I did one on crossing the chasm and scaling. So I want to just go back to it. So when you are starting your business, you have the product market solution fit, and you have as your primary customers the innovators, 2.5% of the market. Then as you gain more traction on that same area, you find you have product market fit and you're actually starting to grow your business and you have a nice traction upwards. And that's product market fit where you have found the right fit of product, the right that will solve the problem of the market. Now, one of the things happen is that now after maybe a second or third year, you attempt to scale. Means I want my business is successful. I'm having regular sales. My sales is growing, but I want to grow larger. And then you want to get into the larger market here, but there's a chasm. But you want to get into that higher market, the early majority market. And one of the things is that this chasm, the reason it's there is the characteristics of stage 2 customers and stage 3 customers has a slight difference. Now, again, we referred to that last month, but what happened is to jump this chasm, you have to take a look at the characteristics of this early majority and then try to refine your product to match their problem. And that's why it says in stage 3 to scale, you're going to refine your product market fit. You're going to make slight changes, pivots, or iterations in your current offering, and then you can scale and cross the chasm. And say, I will say, well, why does that happen? Well, in different markets, there's different sizes, and there's two categories of people in that early market. This early market, what we're looking at, is really where a business starts and gets traction. This early market has certain characteristics of its customers that are more risk takers. They're more likely to take some risks to see if the product really is a match to their solution. In this other area, the larger area, there is a change in what we call the mainstream. There is a change. Let me explain that. The change or differing mindsets in this area is really that these two first areas, they really are risk averse. Now, they really are able to take some risks to see if the product is what they want. This larger majority is a lot more risk averse. They're more pragmatic. So they want to have a certain amount of assurance that the product is really going to match their problem. And to get that feeling and that ability to accept the product, you need to make some changes to the product. Again, when you make that pivot, you make that change in your product offering to match this group, you have scale. And so this is why when we're looking at the reason for failure of 21.5% in the first year, 30% in the second year, but then in the between the third and fifth year, there's a 50% drop. And that's the reasons why in that early part, we are not having a solution problem fit. And in the second stage, as you try to scale, we don't have a product market fit. So one of the questions is that, well, what can we do about that? And so we're going to invest the rest of the evening talking about what can we do about that situation. And what we do is we do something called customer discovery research and customer development research. Both terms are used interchangeably, but it's really in that first stage, in that early stage of no problem solution fit, we call it customer discovery. And the reason is that we have to discover what your customers are really, really wanting. What problem do they have? What do they want to solve? And how they want to solve that problem? And so in the second part, where you're trying to scale, we call it customer development research. And the reason we call it customer development is you already have an idea of what the market wants because you have traction. Now you have to develop your customer knowledge so that you can make the slight changes and iterations in the product to have product market fit in the larger market. So this is where these two terms oftentimes thrown back and forth, but I like to look at it in these two ways. Customer discovery in the early stages, so you can discover what the customer really wants in terms of what problem they have, how they want the solutions, and how to get the solution. And customer development is you already know that you have some problem solution fit. Now it's just how we develop that market so that we will do slight iterations, slight changes in our product so we can match that larger customer market. And so let's take a look at this. Just stop in. Any questions thus far? Just yell it out. Yeah, I'm going to take you into a video, and Steve Blank is featured in this video. In fact, Steve Blank has been credited in the creator of the concept of customer discovery and customer development. He is a professor at Stanford, and he many years ago did create the concept of customer discovery, customer development. So I'm going to have him explain how this works. Let me share my screen. Again, so it's a two-step process when I do a video.
Let's take a look at state your hypotheses and you draw the business model canvas. Again, you put the canvas on the wall, you and your team get around and put up yellow stickies. But the next step is you get out of the building. You're going to test the problem. You're going to test your understanding of the customer's problem or need, and you're going to figure out how to build the prototype. The next thing is you're going to test the solution. You're going to test the solution if you're on the web by building a low fidelity and then a high fidelity prototype. And you're going to, again, test your understanding of the customer's needs and whether your solution matches it. And this match, again, is called product market fit. That's the holy grail for entrepreneurs. Am I building something that people can't get enough of or are just willing to open up their wallets and empty it in front of you to get their hands on? And the fourth phase in customer discovery is you verify or pivot. Do people agree that you're solving a high value problem or need? And do you understand your business model enough to start test selling, which is the next step in customer validation? Now, what's really depressing to most entrepreneurs is the answer most often the first time you go through this is heck no. And what's worse is, well, they kind of sort of like, well, kind of sort of is not a startup. Kind of sort of is people have been nice to you. The only time you know that you have something that's worth investing your time and money in is if people are literally trying to force their money on you or can't use your product even in its buggy, uninitialized form enough. This is what you're looking for. And if you haven't found it yet, that's why the customer development process is an iterative circle. It assumes you will be going through this multiple times. And when you finally think you do have something that matches customer needs, you get to the next step, which is customer validation.
Let me go back to the slides right now. So that was Steve Bank again. He is credited for creating the concept of the customer discovery process and the customer development process. And so what we're going to take a look at, let's see, get this over. We're going to take a look at this process a little bit more in depth. And the reason I want to do this process a little bit in depth is for those of you who have not done this, whether you're running a business and it's successful and you haven't done it, or you're just starting, you haven't done it, or even you starting to build your business model, haven't done it, I can assure you that when you first attempt customer discovery, it will be very painful. And stop sharing. And just so that you can sort of see my face, this is in my estimation of years and years of teaching entrepreneurs and years actually starting businesses. This is actually the most painful part of starting a business, and the reason is that uh, we all, when we start to have an idea for a business, we fall in love with the concept that we're going to run this business, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to help people. And then when we get to the marketplace, we find different answers, and that hurts us. And so, one of the things about this customer discovery process is that we sort of have to come in before entering and doing customer discovery or customer development. Come in with the mental mindset that it will be painful, but at the end, it will be very, very rewarding and has a great deal to do with the success of your business. Again, I will assure you, if you've never done this before, when you make that first attempt, you will find it very uncomfortable. But that's part of being an entrepreneur and being a startup. So let's get into a little bit deeper look into these four phases. So phase one, define a hypothesis. A hypothesis is just a fancy term for a guess. And so what you want to do at this first stage is define a problem as you think it exists. You have to sort of say, all right, I have a product. What problem does it solve? And so in all my coaching and teaching of courses, I always ask, what problem are you solving? And those of you who are working with me, who are on tonight's workshop, you all know that the first question is that, what problem are you solving? And the idea is every business exists to solve a problem. And so you have an idea. What we do in this first stage is to say, I have a guess of what the problem I'm going to solve. Next thing is, I have an idea of the product that I will solve the problem with. So this is the first stage in which you will then use this, your assumption of what you think the problem is and what you think the solution is. And then once you have that down, you get into phase two. And so again, the idea in this first phase is I want you to Be real honest. Is this is the problem I want to uh, um, fix, and this is how I'm going to solve it. And you put that down as your base. The next part is when it's you sort of take a look at. You're going to test your hypothesis, which means you're going to go out. You're going to have to interview people, and the best interviews are done face to face. We call that leaving the building. So you're going to conduct interviews with people who you think, not just at random, but you're going to pick people who fits your target market, fits the people you think might have the problem that you want to solve. And you go in and interview. This again, this is many times time consuming, but you have to sort of pick the right people to ask some of the questions. And once you do that, you're going to try to understand what the responses are. What you're trying to do is you want to seek understanding. When I say understanding is, am I on the right track? Have I, if I think I'm going to solve this chocolate chip cookie by making big chunky chocolates, and so I find a bunch of people who like big chunky chocolates, and I say, all right, can you find it? And they say, no, it's really hard to find. And you sort of know you're on the right track. But if you ask a bunch of people, I'm going to build, do you have a problem with not finding chocolate chip cookies with big chunks of chocolates? And they all say, no, I don't. I really don't care. Then you know you're on the wrong track. So the idea, the second stage in which you're going to be testing your original guess to see if you're on the right track. This is where, like I said, this is where sometimes your feeling gets hurt. But again, you have to be able to look for insights towards the real customer needs. This is where again you're gonna start to do and towards the end of this evening we're gonna talk about some techniques on how to do this. But this is the stage in which you're going to finally meet people, and they will give you some responses based on the questions that you ask. But in this stage, you're trying to seek understanding. You want to start to replace facts from the assumption. They're a lot if I lose you. The third, and so some key questions you might want to ask at this stage is, do the interviewers have this problem? So you might describe a problem that you think you're trying to solve, and ask them, do you have that problem? Or do you feel this problem is something that you want to fix? Do they want a problem to? Many times you will find in the interviews that they have the problem, but they're really not really in a stage in which they want to solve. I can live with that. I can live with it for a while. So that may be something you discover. The other one you might want to try to sort of get an answer is, will they pay for the solution? Is the pain that they're suffering so great that they will pay for the solution that you're offering? This is really one of the key questions. Would they want that problem solved? How fast do they want to solve? And will they pay to have it solved? And you might want to look at questions. A design question says, "What's the value of my solution? How valuable? Rank my solution to your problem, 1 to 5. 1 being it doesn't really fix it. To 5, yeah, I really want to fix it." So this is kind of things that you have to think about when you're developing these questions. And the final thing, you at the end of this phase 2, you have to ask yourself, do you really understand the problem that they have? This is a key question. Do I really understand the problem that they have? So this is phase 2. Phase 3 is now you're going to test your product concept. So once you're satisfied that you understand the customer's problems and their needs, you're going to start to build prototypes or build prototypes, do modeling, do drawings, do descriptions, do app models, all kinds of things to show your target audience what the solution looks like. Again, you're going to test it by leaving the building and doing these in-person interviews. But this time, you're going to be testing your solution with a prototype, a model, a drawing, some way for them to see what the solution might be. And again, what you're looking at this third stage is insights. What you get back from the responses, you will see, and again, unless you do it, you'll see that there was very, very interesting responses that creates in your mind, yes, now I know how to build my product. Because in the search stage, this is where you start to refine your model. You start to put the additional benefits, additional features into your product or your service. And you're going to start to build a product that really solves their problem, really has value to in the solution, but also something that they would like to pay for. So keep looking for insights. This is phase three. Might ask some key questions in this area. Does the concept solve the market need? Does my solution really solve it? Does the concept demonstrate value to the customer? Again, it may solve their problem, but it isn't as valuable as they would like. It solved my problem, but it's not that valuable. I won't pay for it. This is another thing is that they have to value your product solution enough so that they would want to pay for it. Again, will they pay to acquire the product? And other things you need to consider is how does it compare to the current competition? Is it better than the competition? And you might want to look at what the customers you're talking to, how are they solving that problem now? And so this is phase three, where you start to test your product concept with the marketplace against what you think is the problem they have. And phase four, validate the product concept. This is where you're now going to take a prototype, your diagrams, your minimal, what we call the minimal viable product, and you're going to do some testing by, again, leading building by doing some pass fail experiments. When we say pass fail experiments, you might say a typical pass fail experiment is uh, if I was to show you the solution to your problem, as I understand your problem, that you would like big chunky chunks of chocolate, your chocolate chip cookie, and if I built a cookie with this size chunk of chocolate, would you actually like it? Yes, no, maybe so. Would you actually pay for it? Yes, no, maybe so. So you have to devise certain types of experiment. In this case, in the validation stage, you're getting close to seeing if they would actually accept your product. Would they pay for the product? And would they find your product valuable? And it's in this final stage, the fourth stage, that you will validate that you have created by understanding the problem, understanding the nature of the solution, understanding the value that your customers want, and the features that your customers want. You have finally validated that you are on the right track, and you may be looking at this point, entering the marketplace or scaling to a larger market segment. So this is stage four. Again, things to look for at stage four. Does the MVP solve the market need? Again, it's a constant question. Does the customer understand how it will solve their problem? Again, that's another thing. And it's the third time you're going to ask the same question. Will it pay to acquire your product solution? And how does it compare to current competitions and the ability to solve the problems? Again, this is where in stage four, or phase four, you are on the verge of either entering a marketplace or refining a marketplace or refining your product offering to scale. So what occurs is that nothing else matters until you can prove that customers want your product. And so we've gone through, right now, we've gone through the concept of customer discovery, customer development. But let's take a little bit more look into this area of the interview. Again, I can't emphasize strongly that if you've never done this before, even if you've done it several times, you go back in and do it again, it will be one of the most difficult things you will face from an emotional standpoint. Most difficult part that you have to endure as you go and try to get these insights so you can build a better product to solve the customer's problems. So again, nothing else matters until you can prove the customers want your product. And so there's some interviewing tips. Again, what we want to look at is when you do the interview, you want to set the stage, and this is super important. You have to set the stage, the interview by introducing yourself, of course, but then set a very relaxed tone. That if you are seeing that you're tense, your interviewee will feel tense, and you will not get the response that perhaps would be most acceptable. So again, first thing is that with your introductions, try very hard to set a very relaxed tone. The other thing is that this is not a sales presentation. Oftentimes, when I watch interviews, the first interview, there's always this attempt to sell the product. And that is not what this process is about. This process is about discovering things that you might not know about the problem or things that you might not know about your product. And so, what you want to do is you don't want to attempt to sell your product. You just want to try to be a fact finding uh, in exercise. So prepare your discovery questions, make a list of questions, and we'll go through some of that in a little while. But what you want to do is you want to prepare a set of questions. One of the things I want you to consider is do not make that long list of questions. I find that people sometimes try to do like 20 questions. And the reality is, yeah, if you keep your questions down to no more than I usually say no more than 10. In fact, 10 may be a little too long. And the reason is the more questions you ask, the more likely towards the end of that list of questions people will start to lie. What? And I want you to just think about yourself. If you were given a list of questions, like 7 of them, you would probably answer all 7 with great accuracy. But as you cross the 10th question and you approach the 15th question, and as you go past approach the 20th question, what's the probability that your answers are going to be accurate? More than likely, as we pass the 10th question, we start to have responses that are not as accurate. And as we approach the 20th question, we are actually trying to just get out of the survey and just give any answer that comes around. So again, my counsel is that maybe make a list of no more than 10 questions. 7 is really a good place. And then that way you can be sure that whatever response you get is going to be fairly accurate. Other than come prepared to listen. Again, one of the things that's hardest to do is that when you ask a question, what you're going to do is you have to sort of just listen to the responses. This again, it's hard to do, especially if you're really emotionally invested in your product, which all of us, when we start a business, is. When we're emotionally invested in it, we sometimes have a difficult time really listening. But this is critical, and if you listen to all the responses and write it down or record it, somehow have a blank mind as you're listening and just sort of try to get the response down. Come prepared to learn. The other thing is that sometimes we come not to listen, but we come to try and teach when we should be coming to learn. And we try to teach instead of trying to learn. To come prepared to learn. And the last thing you want to do is be open to surprises, insights. And if you are listening carefully and you're open to learn, you will hear something that in your mind go, aha, yeah. And this is, again, a moment in which aha occurs is when you're listening and you're ready to learn, you will hear things that will say, aha, now that's interesting. I really think that's going to be important. So this is a couple of things on listening. So this list that I guess I didn't say a word. I just had sort of just scroll down slowly. It's it's part of an exercise I used to do when I teach active listening. So all of these are critical to listening. Listen actively, keep an open mind, concentrate, avoid mental arguments, don't jump to conclusions, don't fake attention, don't interrupt, check nonverbal messages, give you summary. And the reason I had to scroll in a relatively slow uh, manner is that often when you get to don't jump to conclusions, sometimes your mind has gone someplace else. And this is an exercise I did in active listening. And most of the people, when I asked for a survey, they answered, yeah, around don't jump to your conclusion. They went to someplace else, and because they weren't concentrating. So when you're doing your interviews and you're actively listening, you have to be able to stay and listen to everything. Don't. One of the things that really breaks concentration is mental arguments. Oh, that's not right. No, that's not what I meant. Try to avoid mental arguments during the interview. Also, don't jump to conclusions, because when you jump to conclusions, you sort of negate certain facts and interesting things that the interviewee is telling you. Don't fake attention. And the reason you don't fake attention is because the interviewer will sense it, and they will start to give you rapid and sometimes false answers just by watching you fake attention. Try not to interrupt. Sometimes you need to, but try to have the interviewee complete your sentence, complete the thought, don't interrupt. And the most important thing is check nonverbal messages. If you see that the interview is becoming agitated or becoming bored, you may want to cut off the interview, because at that point, if they become too agitated, they're showing body movements and they're want out of it, they're pretty anxious, or they're bored, they're not going to give you accurate information. And before ending the interview, always give some summary of what you thought you heard and have some confirmation. So these again are tips on active listening. It's critical to listen very accurately and patiently. You're looking for insights. You're looking to gain knowledge to improve the product and improve the way you can solve the customer's problem. We're almost at the end of the evening, but I wanted to show you this one video. And this is the 5 why root cause analysis. This is a fascinating way to conduct interviews to get to the root cause of any problem. And so I'm going to show you this video. And we'll talk a little bit about the 5 whys. Let me get this video up and running.
The 5 whys to reach the root cause of a problem. Within UX, you can use this technique in your qualitative interviews, whether internal or external. The founder of Toyota created this method to dig into the root cause of a problem and work out how to stop the issue from reoccurring at a much deeper level. Here are the steps to the 5 whys questioning technique. First, ask a broad question about your participants' habits or behaviors. Second, ask why to their response 5 times in a row. You can use more or less than 5 whys depending on how quickly you reach the underlying problem. By asking why 5 times, the conversation may unfold in unexpected ways. Let's walk through an example conversation between the VP of Finance and me, the problem solver. The problem is we don't have enough money to pay our bills. So the first question that I would ask is, why can't we pay our bills? And the VP would respond saying, our invoices went out late, so we didn't receive payment from our clients, so now we can't pay our bills. Then I would ask, well, why was it late? VP would respond, well, we forgot to send it out on the 1st. Then I would ask, why did you forget to send it out? And the VP would say, because I was on vacation until Monday the 2nd. So then, of course, I would drill in and understand, why didn't you send it out on Monday the 2nd? And the VP would respond saying, because my boss couldn't approve it. I would drill in deeper, understanding, why couldn't he approve it? And the VP would respond saying, because he was traveling. Now we've made it to the root of our problem. So our solution is that more people need access to approve invoices. The advantages of this method are that you'll get to the root cause of the issue. By constantly questioning your subject, you'll dig deeper into the issue. It's an easy method to implement since you're only asking simple why questions. However, a limitation of this method is that it can feel invasive. When you're constantly asking why, it may feel like you're a little annoying. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button for weekly whiteboard videos.
This 5 why technique is very very effective. Let me go back and share my screen one more time. It is very effective and trying to determine uh, the root cause of problems. Is the one thing I want to, if you want to use it, you need to practice it several times before you go out and test and use it on interviewees. But one thing I want to really warn you on: don't exceed 5. In fact, sometimes when I use it, I rarely hit the 5. I usually get the answer around 4. But again, don't go beyond 5 because it becomes annoying. And if you detect that your interviewers become annoyed with the amount of whys, then you might want to sort of just stop right there. But if you want to use it, practice it, and it's a very effective way to get to the root cause of problems. So we are at the end of the evening. I want to just do a quick summation before I let you do have a great evening. So the benefits of customer discovery, customer development, is identifies market needs. This is critical. It identifies actual needs within the market that you want to do business in. It also validates problem solution fit. Again, without the problem solution fit, which is the first stage of a startup, you really don't have a chance of having a business that will thrive. It guides product development because as you go to interview and you gain these insights, you gain these aha moments, you know how to build your product or build your service in such a way that is becoming more valuable and will actually find its way into the hearts and minds of your customer target markets, and they'll actually pay for it. And you will achieve product market fit as you scale. Again, the idea is product market fit. When it exists, a business thrives because people accept the product and want to buy more of it. It prevents costly mistakes because if you go and build a product and you enter the market without going through the customer discovery process, you might just build the wrong product or overbuild the product or make such mistakes that you will have to start from scratch. So it prevents costly mistakes because you will know in advance which is the right way to build it, the right way to achieve success. And because you built it the way the customers want it, you're having a competitive advantage against your competition because they say, I'm buying X, but if X had this, it would be better. And that's where you start, well, let me build it the way you want. And so you have a competitive advantage. And most importantly, is you start to build relationships with your customers. And this is, again, the reason why the customer discovery process, also called customer development, helps to grow your business. It actually helps to sustain your business from the very start. But again, what I want you to understand is it is so important for you to go ahead and engage in customer discovery at the start or customer development as you start to scale. So as always, you have an opportunity to have a one-on-one complimentary consultation with myself in person or in Zoom. Just make the request at the Wahiawa Value Added Product Development Center. They'll get in contact with me and we can schedule a time in which we can have what I call talk story. I'm always glad to sit down and talk story with anyone who has interest in a startup. And if you've never been to the Wahiawa Value Added Product Development Center, please come out and visit us. If you have been there, please come by again, because every day there's something brand new and very interesting that is happening at the center. And we want you to schedule a tour as often as you like, because every time you come, there'll be something different. And to close the evening, I would like to say, Mikhail, aloha pumiho, which thank you so much for investing your time with me this evening. I hope you found that the information that I shared was worthwhile, and hopefully you will find it to try some of these ideas that I've shared with you. And with that, I really appreciate you visiting with me, and I would like to see you once again. And with that, have a great evening. Thank you so much. My name is Faustina Dag. All my friends call me Dag. Please schedule an appointment with me. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Good night.